Hello friends, for today's video we're going to be doing the Unpopular Opinions 2.0 tag. If you didn't know, there is a regular Unpopular Opinions tag, and the Unpopular Opinions 2.0 tag is actually one that I created as I like the concept of the original and I just kind of wanted to provide additional questions that expanded on that concept. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I haven't looked at what I said years ago. There is a gnat, gosh darn it. I haven't looked at my responses to these questions from a couple years ago when I first made the tag, primarily because I don't want to watch myself. Once I've watched through it and it's final, I'm like, I never want to see that video again. So I didn't look at my answers, but I'm going to make an effort to ensure that the responses I have today are different from what I said in that original one. And also, because it is end of the year, beginning of a new year, that time, I felt this would be a good opportunity to do this tag, as it will allow for me to kind of touch on certain things that I've consumed within the last couple of years. Let me know what your answers to these questions would be, or if there's one specific question that you would have fun answering, let me know what your answer is to that. And additionally, if you yourself are some kind of bookish creator, feel free to tag me if you do this tag yourself. I would love to see your answers. But anyway, jumping into it, the first question is a genre great you don't get the hype for, which doesn't probably need additional elaboration, but the idea being that there are certain books that are consistently recommended. If you're getting into a new genre and you look up what are the best books within this genre, then these are the kinds of books that pop up with that question. So I have found that within the last couple of years, fantasy is expanding, which is so exciting. And it does mean that certain things have kind of emerged as their own genres. So I'm actually going to have two books answered for this. One of them is going to be fantasy, and the other one is going to be fantasy romance. I'll start with the fantasy romance one. I don't think this is a surprise to most people if you're familiar with my channel. I am a little confused to this day about the success of Fourth Wing. I'm super happy that so many people love it, but I did not. I didn't care for most anything in the book except for maybe the dragons. I liked the dragons themselves, but I thought that the stakes felt forced. I found the main character to be annoying. I thought that the love interest was very superficial. I think that the book is exceptionally tropey. And I just feel like a lot of the things that people like about that book, the other books have done it, in my opinion, of course, just to be clear, these are all my opinions, which should be hopefully obvious, but I always prefer to be as clear as possible rather than leave room for me to not be clear. Anyway, so point is, these are my opinions, of course, but I think there are works that have done a lot of the things that people like about Fourth Wing in the past. I don't think that Fourth Wing is really doing anything new per se, but I also understand that it doesn't need to. Things don't have to be the most creative, unique thing you've ever encountered for people to connect with it and relate to it. And that's the thing. So many people really like the underdog aspect of Fourth Wing, and a lot of people really love how high stakes it is and how nonstop it is and how there's just so much angst and lust and the main character is just so hot, and the way he treats her, it's just, I don't know why I always got to do that voice. I'm sorry. That's not in reference to anybody. I don't know why I start doing that voice. Anywho, I don't get it. And when I picked up Fourth Wing, I had no idea that it was going to turn into what it has, because I think a lot of you know, when I picked it up, I actually accidentally got it before it was officially out, because it was already out at the bookstore, and I know you're not supposed to buy books that aren't officially out because it affects sales or something, which it's Fourth Wing. I don't think I affected it, but still on principle, I wouldn't have done that if I had realized that it wasn't officially out, but I saw it and I was like, oh, I remember this on an anticipated releases video, I'll give this a go, and I started it, and I remember in my anticipated releases video saying, oh, this has a lot of really positive reviews and a really high average rating so far, and from early reviews, so hopefully, I'll feel similar, and this can be something that I'm on the hype train for. And then I started it, and I was like, what's happening? I had that feeling before the book was officially out. I think at this point, Fourth Wing has become similar to things like ACOTAR. It's become that thing people pick up because they have the intention of mocking it and stuff. And I don't pick up books ever with that intention. I always am hopeful. Even if it's something outside my norm, I'm always hopeful I'm going to enjoy it. And sometimes I reach for things that I wouldn't typically pick up because I want to push the boundaries of what I think I like, because sometimes when you go outside your norm, you actually find, oh, this was my favorite thing I've read this year. So that was not what happened with Fourth Wing. I put up my review being like, what's going on with this book? And that was kind of my response throughout the video. And man, that book has just blown up since. I'm so sorry if you love Fourth Wing because I know what it's like when you're listening to somebody be like, this other thing though, like, what's the deal? And I understand that feeling of being like, no, please, here's why it's great. So I apologize if you're a big fan of it, but I guess that's the point of this video, is to talk about the things that I don't necessarily line up with everybody on. Now for the genre, quote unquote, great within just fantasy. And this is not going to be anything new. This is something that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And I picked this up years and years and years ago, and it still stands for me. And that would be Name of the Wind. I feel some of you immediately, I can just feel it, that some of you are like, how can you not think it's worth the hype? Or maybe that's not so much the case anymore. I feel a lot of people have maybe fallen a little out of love with that series, but not for the same reasons. I just never liked Kvothe, the main character. I know a lot of people really love the writing. The writing is nice. I don't know that I was as enamored with it. I don't know. Something about how he conveys things just didn't quite connect with me, but I would say at more so it was how Kvothe was written. I found him pretty insufferable, to be honest. But a lot of people, I think, have fallen out of love with the series because it's not finished and it's sort of like a retaliation feeling. That's not my experience whatsoever. But I know there are some people out there that maybe don't resonate with Name of the Wind necessarily. It's just, for me, not something that I found to be as awe-inspiring as I was hoping. And I think that's part of the problem with genre greats, is that you are told by so many people and it's on so many lists over and over and over again. You see people saying this is so amazing. And then when you go into it, you expect potentially too much of the story. You have an expectation that can never be filled. So maybe there was a hint of that, but this is not a story that I've ever felt the need to reread, because maybe it was just that was the problem. I don't like that character. And I know there's a lot of debate about how reliable of a character he is, how much is he embellishing his own story. And while I think it's human nature, so I appreciate the inclusion of that, I also don't like the idea that the character would embellish so much to present this almost borderline perfect version of himself, because I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to hear you do that. I am only, of course, scratching the surface about what Name of the Wind has to offer, as I did with Fourth Wing as well. Anyway, let's move on to question 2. An adaptation you wish was never made. There's no way my answer was different before, because I'm pretty sure this already existed. Witcher, the Netflix adaptation. We should have left it at just the video games. They're great. They're my favorite version of the Witcher story. And a little bit this year, I randomly got nostalgic and I was like, I'm going to play some Witcher 3. And I was playing it and I'm like, dang, this is a good game. Yes, there are some things about it that are slightly dated. Anyway, that's not the point of the question's not, why do you love The Witcher 3? The question is an adaptation you wish was never made. The reason I wish it wasn't made, I just feel like it had such a sad trajectory. I was so hyped for this adaptation. So incredibly hyped. And I was hopeful when it first was announced that they would animate it and it would look like their cinematic trailers do. Because to this day, I occasionally will just be like, I'm gonna go watch those cinematic trailers. And they're great. So I was hopeful. They didn't do that. Instead, they decided to go live action. I don't, to this day, think that was the best decision, because some parts of it look good and other parts look really cheesy. And I personally don't think the special effects were very good. So I was very hesitant after season 1 to keep going. I checked out season 2. I liked some of the episodes, but what they did with certain story beats, I thought were so strange. I couldn't decide what motivated them to make the changes they did, which isn't to say I'm opposed to changes. It's an adaptation, and I recognize you have to make cuts in certain places or you have to combine certain plot lines, but they added a plot line that I was like, what are you doing? This takes away from certain aspects of this story and these characters. And if you know, you know. I remember really liking it, and I think it was the second to last episode of the season. I was like, why did you make that character do that? The third season, I never even bothered watching. And I'm bummed because I feel like for a lot of people, obviously, a show is more accessible than a video game, but the great writing that is within The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt is not going to be the thing that most people associate Witcher with. They're going to associate it with Henry Cavill and, oh my gosh, Henry Cavill in a bathtub. Oh my gosh, Cavill growling. And like, that's going to be their extent. And they're going to be like, I'm sad Henry Cavill's not Witcher anymore. And you're like, it could have been so good. Question 3. Series, you have to fight back your inner snob because you kind of think people just don't get it. Why did I write this as a question? I mean, I know why I did it, and it's because I want other people to have to answer this question. But I'm like, why am I making myself answer this question? All right. This year, meaning 2024, I, for the first time, watched Attack on Titan. When I first started, I was like, I don't know. And then I got further in, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And by the end, I was like, this is a masterpiece. So I'm one of those people now, and I know it. But, by the way, before I continue on, I have to say, because when I first started it, I was like, I don't know about this. I mean, like, I can see some potential, but we'll see. I was just telling you all at the beginning that I hate watching my own videos. Like, I don't want to do it. It's borderline painful for me. But there is a part of me for my side channel, Full Meta Analysis, where I went through and I was kind of doing like review reactions to the show as I watched through it. I did the same thing for Avatar: The Last Airbender, by the way. But anyway, I am considering rewatching my first video and being like, oh my gosh, how painful this must have been for all of you to watch, because I was probably so annoying. I don't know. Anyway, that could be fun. Let me know if that sounds like fun. I have other Attack on Titan videos I plan on doing, but I also did an arrangement of one of the pieces of music because, oh my gosh, is that music so good. But anyway, this actually segues nicely into my actual answer to this question. So, when watching Attack on Titan, I stayed away from seeing anybody's thoughts, and I actually tried to avoid oftentimes looking at the comments past a certain point of the show, because people can sometimes accidentally spoil you, or they'll say something where you're like, well, now I know something's gonna happen based off of how you said that, and I just really didn't want that for that show, because if you know Attack on Titan, you know all the twists and turns within that story, and I wanted no inclination toward one thing or the other. Anyway, now that I have finished Attack on Titan, I finally allowed myself, after recording my final thoughts I haven't done like a series review necessarily, but I gave my thoughts for the very end, and I do plan on making more content, but I was like, now I can like kind of see what other people think. And I always knew the ending was not everybody's favorite because it was hard to avoid that when it was first coming out, but I didn't know specifics as to why. And I won't give them here for spoiler reasons, of course. But I've seen some people that are like, the only people that like the ending are people that only get caught up with all the emotions that the music makes you feel and how cool the action looks. And they don't actually care about themes or character development, because if they did, they would hate the ending. And I was like, real fans know the ending sucks. That's kind of the vibe that that comment gave. That wasn't a comment on one of my videos. All of my feed on Instagram now is just Attack on Titan content. I think it was somewhere there. But I was just like, what? Come on. That's such a... There are plenty of reasons why I can completely understand people not liking the ending and people loving the ending. I fall in the camp of loving the entirety of that story. And I don't dismiss whatsoever people's gripes with it, because I get it. It makes some bold decisions. However, I can't stand that attitude. So then I find myself becoming a snob when people start acting like that, because I'm just instantly like, what? I can feel myself starting to be so condescending and belittling, and I really have to fight back. I'm not that I was going to make like some account and respond to this person anonymously or something, like whatever. I'm just like, move on with my day. I think I just told my husband about it, and then we had a good chuckle. Let me restart. I can hear my dog eating by the way. So if you hear her eating, that's what that noise is. But when you don't like something, you can just express why you didn't like it, and you can express your feelings. Now, if there's some viewpoint that is borderline offensive and really, it's perpetuating really harmful ideas, I can understand, hi Luna, why you might want to touch on those things and be like, this is why, for me, this viewpoint is actually, I am a little troubled that this is the takeaway, because, and I think that can allow for nuance in something that maybe typically was reduced. But when it's just like, other people don't like this because they're dumb, I don't have any desire to engage with that kind of thing. And I can just feel myself being like, I'll stop, because I can feel I'm about to start being insulting, and I don't want to do that. Question 4, a series you're tired of everyone hating on. Oh, this is a perfect thing for me to say next. Okay, I am already tired of people acting like females in video games is woke. I know it's not book related. I don't know that did I say it had to be a book? Or a series. So Ghost technically is a series now that they're making another one. So I'm cheating. I'm answering with video games. Also Witcher, because a different character is the protagonist, which anybody who played Witcher 3 expected this character. Ghost of Tsushima has fantastic storytelling, and I don't understand why suddenly the trust in the creators to develop the story goes out the window because they're going to talk about a female character. It's frustrating, because it just feels like a way to make the genuine great conversations that can come about in regards to storytelling in games, how games are pushing the boundaries of what is even possible, the experiences you can have with games, the actual fun gameplay that can happen, and the worlds that you can get lost in. All those conversations, it's like they become second. Do I think it's ridiculous? Yes, obviously, probably. For the adults in the room, and also mature kids. This is not a concern for any of us. Question 5, a book or series everyone thinks is really powerful but you didn't connect with. Pure Nessie. I have said many times that while I do think that the book provides a very interesting reading experience, I consistently, while reading, thought it was building up to something that I can't give specifics because I don't want to spoil things, but what I thought it was speaking about was extremely powerful and important, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then it wasn't that, and I was like, oh, which is my own fault, because I guess I decided what the book was rather than reading it and actually seeing it for what it was. But what it turned out to be just didn't move me the same way as what I thought it was turning out to be did. Question 6, a character you don't get the hype for. Oh, Emily from Guns of the Dawn. I had quite a few people, and when I would watch friends of mine that are booktubers, or just in general, when I heard about this story, everybody would be like, Emily's so resilient. She's such an awesome character. And I read her and I'm like, she's kind of dumb. I have ranted about this character enough. I've ranted about this book enough, so I don't know that I need to do that here again. But I think I have a 44-ish minute long review, and I get into specifics in that. But it's just the challenge that I think a lot of writers face when they are specifically writing about propaganda, which is, at what point does it become clear to the character that they have been fed propaganda? And when the reader is clued in pretty easily as to what is a lie or what's bending of the truth, and then they know but the character doesn't, I think that can be done in a way where you don't just immediately decide the character's stupid, because readers are very capable of recognizing that they're not in it the way that character is in it, and they haven't grown up in that environment. So you can be understanding of the fact that it's going to take a while for the character to come to certain realizations, if they ever do. But this character, there was just certain things partially tied to the propaganda, but just also partially tied to other characters, and a lack of, I felt, sometimes really doing some work with what they think and believe that made me frustrated with them. I just have a lot of things about this book I don't love, but I wouldn't say she was the main reason that I didn't love this story. I think there were plenty of other things that kind of took me out of it a bit. But I had just seen so many people say that she's such a great character, and I didn't think so. Question 7. A book or series everyone wants an adaptation for, but you don't. Okay, so my answer to this has an asterisk, and that would be the Stormlight Archive. If we get an adaptation, I'm like, please don't make it live action. And I think Sanderson has expressed wanting live action for his adaptations, and I always want the creators of stories to be able to have the creative control they want. And if what he wants from an adaptation is live action, then I want him to have that. It just wouldn't be my preference, and I wouldn't probably like it unless it is really well done. But given just how intense the magic gets to be, I really think that animation would serve it better. I don't want for Stormlight to have what happened to Witcher, where you have this adaptation that just ended up tanking overall. And I feel like Stormlight has so much potential to reach so many people, and especially with the mental health representation. I just want that story to be portrayed in the absolute best way possible for that story. And I personally think animation would do a great job. Last question. A book or series you think people have bias toward and don't really love or hate as much as they claim. And I'm going to give a general answer rather than a specific book or series. And that would just be book talk books. I'm specifically highlighting the portion of this because it was either or. Either people maybe don't love them as much as they say, or they don't hate them as much as they say. And specifically with book talk books, I do feel like it's become a trend on BookTube specifically to make fun of book talk books. And certainly there are plenty of books that exist that people are going to pick up and not like. I'm not by any means saying I'm opposed to people having videos about book talk books they didn't like, or even focusing on one single book and talking about why they thought it was a dumpster fire or why they hated it and ranting about it. I'm not opposed whatsoever. I want people to feel that they can always speak honestly about the things that they didn't like. However, those videos do very well oftentimes, and they can be very successful, and they can get a lot of eyes on the creator, and it incentivizes people to continue with that. And so I think sometimes people can seek out something so that they can continuously benefit from the success that those videos can provide. And I'd like to believe that when this sort of thing happens, it's sort of accidental or unintentional, and that for some people, maybe they're very upfront that they just genuinely want to provide entertainment for other people. But I do think sometimes people play up. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to act as though I think everybody's maliciously like, oh, I actually think this book's really good, but I'm going to pretend I hate it. I don't think people are insisting Ice Planet Barbarians is bad, but in actuality, secretly, they think it's the greatest work of fiction that's ever existed. I'm by no means trying to imply that. I just think some individuals perhaps maybe recognize that they feel validated and they feel like, oh, people agree with me, people like me, people are paying attention to me, and I like this feeling. I want to create this feeling more, and maybe seek out books that they know their audience is going to want to see them react to, and then they might play up for the purpose of entertainment how much they disliked it, when maybe ultimately they were just kind of like lukewarm. That's it though for the Unpopular Opinions 2.0 tag. Feel free to elaborate on any of these points or answer these questions for yourself. I would love to see your responses. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.